Welcome to the Endo Babe podcast and the Endometriosis Empowerment series. I'm so excited to share today's episode with you. Today I'm chatting with Christie Lee, who's an Australian dietitian who specializes in endometriosis, gut health, and IBS. What I love about the way that Christie helps you manage your endometriosis is that she's so passionate about empowering you with the knowledge and the skills and the tools so you can actually eliminate your endo belly and your gut problems and your pain and really continue to thrive with endometriosis so you can have more good days than bad a lot faster. She's just a wealth of knowledge. We chat about endo belly, gut health, IBS, all the things, and I'm really excited for you to dive into this episode. So let's get her on here. Welcome, Christie. I'm so excited that you're here.
Hey, Chelsea.
Hi. Everybody, you're going to love her. So let's kind of start off about you giving an introduction of yourself, kind of explain to people who you are, why you are doing what you are doing now, and I guess what you do.
Yeah, brilliant. Cool. Well, I'm Christie and I'm a dietitian living in Perth in Australia. And when I first came out of university, I didn't know what the hell I was going to do. I just knew that I loved food, I loved to cook, and I wanted to make people feel better, essentially. And that, I guess, probably everybody's career takes these little like dips and turns, and you end up where you end up because of various experiences that you have. And for me in particular, I was originally training up in irritable bowel syndrome, and that was something that I just loved. I loved gut health. I loved understanding how it functions, why it doesn't function sometimes for some people, and then what can we do about it? Because food has such an incredible role to play in that, well, food is what is in our gut, and our gut's primary function is to digest our food, but also protect us from the outside world. So it's very much part of our immune system as well. But diving down this area, what happened to me was I was working in my clinic one day and I had someone come in who was looking into how to manage their IBS, right? So their irritable bowel syndrome. And she also told me, like, when we were doing a bit more of an assessment, apart from, the typical like bloating and constipation, the diarrhea and excess wind, she also had things like worsening of her bowel symptoms when it was that time of the month. She had pain that referred around her pelvis and down her legs and her back. And she just generally had very painful, horrible periods. So straight away for me, like, these are all very big red flag symptoms. This is something that I was quite well trained up when I did my IBS. So I understood a lot about endometriosis coming into this. And so what really surprised me though was that when I approached her about this and I said, like, this isn't normal, this is really quite bad, have you spoken to your doctor about it? And she like burst into tears, absolutely just unleashed all of the emotion and just was sobbing and said, like, no one has ever told me that this is not okay. I've tried many times to get people to say, is this normal? Like, can I have some investigation? What can I do? I can't live like this. And I was shocked. This was my first ever experience of meeting someone who wasn't diagnosed with endo and understanding the journey of getting to the diagnosis. So what we ended up doing was I said, look, unfortunately, like, it's not going to be ethical for me to keep managing your IBS without understanding what is causing your IBS. Is there something else that is going on here? We need to figure that out. Then I can actually, give you better treatment. Essentially, I can use IBS strategies, but also be looking into like hormone and women's health nutrition strategies as well. And she went off to see her doctor. And I remember it so clearly because it was a Saturday morning when I got this email from her. And when the email came through, I thought, oh my gosh, I wonder what's happened. Did she get a diagnosis? Was I right? Like, I feel so confident that I know she has something like endo or possibly even PCOS. But I was absolutely devastated when I read her email because her email said that the doctor said, I don't think you have anything and should probably just take the pill again. Oh my God. And I just, like, yeah, and for this second time, like, you know, I've already had this experience with her explaining to me how she had been, you know, pretty much just told like to just, go home and be quiet and take the pill. So, and for me as a practitioner as well, as a healthcare professional, I was angry. I was really embarrassed as well, because as a health professional talking to another health professional, you expect a kind of certain level of, I don't know, just like taking me seriously. I think that I feel like I was experiencing what she was experiencing, that no one was taking me seriously. I felt like I wasn't being validated about my justification for why she needed to be further investigated. And so I got so angry that I started just like keyboard worrying. Like I was just typing this letter, and I wrote out this letter just like really quite plainly justifying, like, this is not normal. This is what investigation this person needs. And, you know, pretty much pleading in the last sentence of saying, look, we have not had any help before with this, and I'd really appreciate just a look into it, just a further, deeper look. I'm not saying to diagnose, like, just look. Oh my gosh. And so she ended up seeing a doctor, an old doctor of hers, someone that she'd seen when she was a young child, someone who understood her from a very young age. And this doctor did actually help us get a referral to gynecology. And it was actually quite a few months later that she finally had the surgery, and then she was diagnosed with endometriosis. And I just, oh my gosh, like that story and that girl, and we've kept in touch ever since, because I feel like for both of us it was such a defining moment. And it was really after that I just went, this is crazy. This is absolutely madness. Like, how many other people aren't getting their diagnosis? How many other people are living with this pain and dealing with the symptoms of it, and no one's listening? And so that's when I went off and did some more training in women's health, and actually went and studied like things like fertility nutrition, understanding PCOS and endometriosis, and going that deeper into like hormone nutrition. And then coming out of that, I think it's when I got on Instagram and I started actually like bridging these two worlds together, like bringing my IBS skills, bringing the hormone and women's health nutrition together to actually create something more specific for endo, because I feel like you can't just know one of those things. There's so many aspects to managing endo. You need to know a little bit of everything.
Oh my God, your story is just like so heartwarming to know that there's like people like you out there that actually give a shit. You know, as you experience firsthand, like a lot of the medical community is just been ingrained in them that endometriosis isn't really anything. Like we just kind of brush it off. And I know so many women, myself included, were diagnosed with IBS before we actually got our endometriosis diagnosis, because a lot of those symptoms overlap. Mm-hmm. Right. And I remember you and I were talking one time, and you said that one of your patients came in and like she had that typical back pain, right, that you get with endometriosis, and you don't really get that with IBS. Mm-mm. Right. Exactly. So it's like a telltale sign that it's something more than IBS if you're having that low back pain. Mm-hmm. What, I guess, for somebody that does like is diagnosed with IBS, like what would you recommend? I guess, how would you recommend that they kind of move forward with their nutrition? Because I know that nutrition plays a huge role in endometriosis management and just management of a lot of illnesses in general. So, but I guess IBS and gut health, like how would you recommend moving forward with improving gut health is what I'm asking.
Yeah. No, and it's a really good question, because things like Endo Belly, right? Endo Belly is that awful bloating that you experience. And I like to go even further into that definition. And I actually like to really think of endo belly actually also being very much related to anything to do with the belly region. So like your bloating, your constipation, diarrhea, any pain or things that you're having around that gut area is all part of having endo belly. And it's really, so there's lots of different strategies out there, and you'll find stuff online about cutting this out and cutting that out. And it's just, I'm sure I could just like talk about that all day. So much information online. And one of the biggest reasons for that is that there is still a long way to go in terms of the research around understanding endometriosis and the bowel symptoms that come with it. And so looking into around like gut health and IBS, Endo Belly, Endo, and all of that stuff together, the approach that I really like to look into, and the reason I go for this, is that I actually want everybody to be able to feel symptom relief before they can move forward. So something like the Fodmap diet, right, which is a medically researched dietary strategy that has been used in irritable bowel syndrome, and it's very, very effective. So generally about 3 out of 4 people with irritable bowel will respond really well to a Fodmap diet. And there was a study that was done in 2017, and it was the first look into could a Fodmap diet be used in an endometriosis population. This study was really, really fascinating because the outcomes of it was that, yes, again, 3 out of 4 people with endo and IBS responded to the diet. And in fact, they had these 2 groups where someone who had endo and IBS versus someone who just had IBS. And weirdly enough, there was a better response in the group who had both endo and IBS as compared to just the IBS group.
Interesting.
Yeah, really, really fascinating. And I like that we need more, for any good science to be validated, we do need more research to come through on this topic. And so I really look forward to like further studies coming out and just diving even deeper onto that. But what I really love about the Fodmap diet is that there's not one food group that is excluded on this diet. So it's not an exclusion diet where you're cutting out foods and they're staying out of your diet for a long time. Firstly, it's a swap diet. So there are 3 phases. And in that first phase, you're swapping out your higher FODMAP foods for lower FODMAP alternatives, and they need to be nutritionally equivalent. So if you're swapping out, if you don't want to have dairy in your diet on, FODMAP, you can actually still have like lactose-free milk. But you want to make sure if you're going to choose a plant-based milk that it's got to have calcium in it, it's got to have vitamin D, it's got to have phosphorus and B12. And a lot of plant-based milks are not equivalent in nutritional value, which is very frustrating. And so you're doing this swapping thing. Then the second phase, you're challenging your foods, and you actually one by one actually look into figuring out what is triggering your symptoms of endo belly and IBS and what is not, so that you can actually understand how much you tolerate and then get off this restrictive diet, because you don't want to be cutting out foods all the time and not knowing what is causing your symptoms. Yeah, and then this last phase is where you personalize it. And so the Fodmap diet, I really like to stress, is a symptom management strategy. It's not something that should be, you shouldn't be following the Fodmap diet forever. It's something that relieves your symptoms really effectively and really quickly so that you can focus on anti-inflammatory nutrition, hormone balancing nutrition, and gut health nutrition. And the reason I'm such an advocate for this is that it's very difficult when you have no energy, you have pain, your bowels are all over the place, you need a toilet everywhere you go, you're scouting out, where are the public toilets when you go out? You can't live like that. And so when you're in that situation, learning about anti-inflammatory nutrition and hormone balancing nutrition, exercise more, do more yoga, breathe, journal, like all of this kind of stuff is really hard to do when you feel like shit all the time,
Yeah.
Just to put it nicely.
Yeah.
And so part of that journey of healing, when you're really stuck in that, like you've got all the symptoms and your pain is like 10 out of 10, all of this stuff, we actually need to get you to feel better first so that you have the capacity, the motivation, the ability to actually then go deeper into actually reducing inflammation and balancing out your hormones, because that stuff right there is actually what's going to give you long-term improvement in your symptoms, but also long-term in improving your gut health as well. Because one of the biggest strategies of gut health is eat more fiber, eat more plant foods, eat more variety of plant foods. And what can happen a lot of the time is that you go and do that and then you feel worse. So you go and eat more plant foods and you start trying to have all these fermented foods and, high fiber, like skins on, and it makes you feel worse. And so I really believe that we need to go like a step before that to actually nut out exactly what's triggering you so we can manage that, get you feeling really good. Then let's dive into those deeper, bigger concepts. And it's probably one of the biggest reasons why I don't believe in working with people in like a just a one-off session kind of scenario, because you need months to kind of work through some of these things, and then after that it's going to be years of you sort of like refining and finding what you love, and increasing your confidence with cooking and things like that. So it's not an overnight thing, nutrition.
No, nothing with healing is.
No, yeah, nothing with healing. Yeah.
And it is so interesting because for somebody who has like all of those bowel symptoms and they're like needing a toilet every now and then, or they're super constipated, right? Or they're having a lot of gas, like trying to, like you were saying, eat more fiber might cause you more pain before you actually figure out what your triggers are, right? And why is that?
Yes, exactly.
Mhm.
And ideally, you have food intolerances because something's not functioning about your gut, right? And so if we can improve the function of your gut and we can improve the health of your gut, your food intolerances should reduce over time, and you can actually go and revisit some of those foods you poorly tolerated the first time you investigated them. You can revisit them into the future. Every, say, 6 months, you might want to look into challenging it again, which means you just try some of it and you take a portion of it and increase it over 3 days to see how you feel. And you might notice that, oh, I can eat more of this than I used to be able to eat. And so over time, with healing the gut and looking after yourself and your inflammation, you will get better. You won't be, avoiding these foods forever.
Yeah, exactly. And I know like endometriosis and gut health obviously go hand in hand, right? I know a lot of the research is pointing to endo being like centered around immune dysfunction, right? And like you were saying in the very beginning, our gut and our GI tract is part of our immune system. And so what ways can we start to improve our gut health?
Mm-hmm.
Is it,
Yes.
do you always start with the Fodmap diet for kind of everybody, or is it just if you're having IBS symptoms? Sorry, that
Yeah,
was
it
a question.
Yeah, it really depends. So there are these, as I said before, the Fodmap diet will only work for 3 out of 4 people who have endo and IBS together. So there will be a group of people that won't respond to it. And for those people, we actually need to go down a slightly different journey. And there are kind of 2 layers here to managing gut health. You have like that first line management, and you have a second line of management. And FODMAP fits into a second line of management. So your first line that you want to be looking into are things that everybody can be doing and probably really should be doing. And some of those would be like looking into things that upset your gut or gut irritants. So caffeine can upset some people's tummies. Not everybody. Some people just drink their coffee and they're all good. But if you have diarrhea, cutting out coffee will make a huge difference. It increases the speed of your gut, and it also it can make you feel anxious because it increases your blood pressure, increases your heart rate. And if you're someone who feels like that you are easily stressed out or nervous, coffee is going to possibly irritate you. Looking into like chili or spices in food. Some people are really affected by anything that's got a lot of like heat in it. Looking into, I love strategies around mindful eating, because a lot of the time we're just sort of shoveling food down. We're not really thinking too much about it. And one of the biggest signs that you aren't eating mindfully is if you notice that there are undigested pieces of food when you look into the toilet. And that just, a lot of clients have said to me in the past, like, oh, I don't eat seeds because I just see them in my stool and I think, well, I'm not digesting it, so what's the point in eating it? And if it's there, it means you haven't chewed it. You're not chewing your food properly.
Yeah, which is the very start of your digestion. You need to chew enough to actually get those digestive enzymes to start their job.
Exactly. Yeah. Your teeth are very much the very first phase in mechanical breakdown of food. So we actually need to physically and mechanically break it down. Then we've got saliva and then, the acid in the stomach and all of the enzymes and other bits that happen in the small intestine can now start to digest that food because it's been mechanically broken down by your teeth. So mindful eating is really just being present when you're eating. It's chewing your food properly. It's sitting at the table, put the phone down, the TV's off. And if it's a good strategy to, if you can, talk to someone or, that helps slowing you down. Or my favorite trick is to actually make sure you put your cutlery down between mouthfuls. Because too often we are preparing a bite of food, putting it in our mouth, and then while we're chewing, we're preparing the next bite. And some people even go as far as to like put the next bite in their mouth when they haven't even finished swallowing the one before. Yeah, so just popping your cutlery down will create spaces of time in between eating, and you'll find that naturally your meal will start to take more like 15 minutes or up to 20 minutes to finish, which is what we call, I guess is much more of an optimal time to finish a meal in. Oh, there are so many good strategies, even things like looking at like portions of food and exactly what kind of balance is in the meal. So if your focus on your plate is very much heavier on, say, anything that's got a lot of fat or a lot of carb, it's going to make you feel quite full and uncomfortable. So the kind of healthier balance to go for is actually filling out half your plate with more vegetables and lower starch type foods, and then you have a quarter of it being like a higher starch food, something that might be like whole grain rice or quinoa, or maybe you're going to go for a sweet potato, and then the other quarter is your protein. And I'm sure it's the same in America, but in Australia we are just half a plate steak and half a plate chips or something.
Yeah, we're very much meat and potato society for sure.
Yes. But yeah, like looking into like hydrating, making sure you're hydrated, that is such a big one. Most of us know we're supposed to have minimum 2 liters of water a day, but we're just not remembering. We haven't built out the habits into our lifestyle and having that drink bottle that follows us around. So I know I've got mine sitting here. But yeah, so you've got your first line strategies. The second line is looking into then FODMAPs as an option. And if you wanted to go then that next layer, so typically someone who's now managing their symptoms quite well, so they don't have the bloating affecting their life so much and your constipation, diarrhea being such a problem, that's when I would normally then transition someone into then making their gut even better. So if we've managed to get your gut 9 out of 10 better, let's now make it 15 out of 10 better, because there are really good strategies around looking into ensuring that your gut microbiome is as healthy as possible. Yeah, and that is like your forest of good bacteria, or it's a forest of bacteria, and we have a balance of good and bad. We want more good, not so much the bad. And key strategies around that is making sure that you meet a certain variety of plant foods in your diet. So we typically say minimum 30 different plant foods in a week. And a lot of people will initially be like, oh my gosh, that sounds insane, 30 different plant foods. But I guarantee if you just go and write down what you had for breakfast, write down what you had for lunch and your dinner, and just count how many plant foods you had in that particular day, you'll find that you might not be doing so bad, or you might be very close to that 30 in the week. So my favorite trick is do your shopping list. So when you're planning to go to the grocery store, just write a little number next to each of the plant foods on your shopping list, and just get a gauge okay, have I hit 25? Is it only 20? What little swaps and things can I do to just bump it up? Could I get mixed nuts instead of almonds? Could I get mixed leaves instead of just spinach? And just those little swap ups will increase the amount of plant variety in your diet.
I love it. So you make it sound so simple.
I think as humans, we like to overcomplicate things.
You. And I love the little tricks of even just like adding in the mixed vegetable or mixed lettuce, right? Because what is that? Then 3 instead of 1.
Mm-hmm.
'Cause what does that do? Because I know the more diverse the plant foods you eat, right, the more diverse your gut microbiome is. And I know that there's like a huge connection between like the gut brain axis and like anxiety and, sorry, this is kind of like a side note, like anxiety, depression, and things like that, and mental health. And so, do you also see, like, with your clients that are improving all of their gut symptoms, that they're also improving any kind of mental health issues that they're having as well?
Hugely, yeah, absolutely. And that's exactly right. Like there's that vagus nerve runs between the brain and the gut, and it's a two-way highway nervous system. So we know that if your gut is unhappy, it can cause your brain to become unhappy and you might experience stress and anxiety, depression. And if you're stressed and anxious, that in turn can also affect your gut and actually change the way that the gut moves and functions. And that's largely because we have those two nervous systems, that kind of fight or flight or rest and digest. And if you're constantly in fight or flight stress mode, you're never actually turning on that rest and digest nervous system. So your gut isn't getting a lot of attention from the body. And then you can find that you don't tolerate certain foods very well. They cause symptoms for you. But yeah, taking it back to the gut microbiome, we actually know that there are types of bacteria in there that are involved in chemically messaging with the brain around anxiety and stress and essentially how we're feeling at the time. And so we want to encourage, what we understand about the gut microbiome is actually still, we still have a bit of a way to go. And some of the key things that we are very confident in our understanding on is that diversity is key. And you mentioned that before, because the more diverse your bacteria, the better your gut is going to be. And I always use that term of like calling it like a forest of bacteria, because I like people to think of it like a rainforest. And any kind of rainforest or natural ecosystem thrives when there's diversity, when there's bugs and beetles, there's animals, there's birds, there's trees, there's flowers, there's bees. Imagine if you started removing certain populations of animals or species from that rainforest, there's going to become a disconnect in the balance there. I feel like I'm talking about like the Lion King and like the circle of life. I just had this like image of the Lion King. But yeah, I mean, that's it. So when we want to make sure that our forest or our rainforest in our gut is thriving, we want to have every single kind of different bacteria in there and in a certain kind of balance, because something called dysbiosis or imbalanced gut bacteria is one of those theories that is being put forward. Does this contribute to endometriosis? Does it contribute to epigenetic changes that cause endometriosis? The gut microbiome is being studied in so many different aspects of our health. It's being looked into around diabetes and cardiovascular disease, a lot of diseases that start with inflammation at the core of it. And we know that inflammation is one of those hallmark features of endo. So it'll be very interesting to watch this space and see exactly, could it be the gut microbiome? Like, that would be so exciting.
My gosh, yeah. Then there would be a way to actually manage it, which is beautiful.
Mm-hmm.
And prevent even,
Exactly. Yeah, that would be the best. If in my lifetime I can see medical research progress to the point of understanding cause, or even just actually, I said this not too long ago to someone, just better diagnosis. Like if we could even just do a simple blood test to even just diagnose it, and then have some kind of better treatment strategies other than just medications and just surgeries, things that don't have side effects, or invasive as well. Like that would just be the best, wouldn't it?
Yeah, that would be amazing. Hopefully in our lifetime that happens. And I know there's a lot of research happening on endometriosis right now. And what does it take, like 17 years for research to be implemented in medical practice? So maybe we're like halfway there-ish.
Yeah, I agree.
But it is beautiful. Like, I love everything that you do, and the way that you like share it with everybody just makes it so, I don't know, you explain things in layman terms very well.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah, and I think that just kind of going back to, like, I know you mentioned Endo Belly, and I know you talk about Endo Belly a ton, and I love your work on Endo Belly, and I would love to chat about that a little bit. The
Mm-hmm.
kind of ways that you can help manage Endo Belly, because for some women and some clients that I've like had, that's one of their biggest symptoms. They're like, I can't go out, I can't do anything. I look pregnant. People are asking me if I'm pregnant. My belly hurts so bad. I'm so uncomfortable. So what, like, for somebody that comes to you with those kinds of symptoms, like, what would you recommend?
Yeah, I mean, and so Endo Belly is something that I treat very much in the same way that I would be treating IBS, because Endo Belly is, think of IBS. IBS is a syndrome, irritable bowel syndrome, and syndrome just means collection of symptoms or grouping of symptoms. So it doesn't actually have its own, it's not like a disease, or it's not like a condition. And so IBS actually comes hand in hand with lots of different conditions. Like, we know that things like bloating, constipation, diarrhea, and wind come with celiac disease. It comes with diverticular disease. It comes with other inflammatory bowel diseases as well. And it comes with endometriosis. So the endobelly that someone is experiencing is very much what we would call IBS in the medical world. And so the way that you would manage that is that you would actually look at those kind of like gut targeted therapies, like around nutrition. So actually around like the surface of the gut lining, and actually then how someone's tolerating foods. But if we've kind of talked a little bit about some of those being things like Fodmap and the first line gut therapies. But if we wanted to just kind of step outside of that for a minute and actually look into non-nutrition strategies, and we did highlight just before about how there's a two-way highway going on between our gut and our brain. Some really interesting evidence has come forward about using things like gut-directed hypnotherapy, which, yeah, sounds totally wacky, but
No, not at all. I'm like, tell me more.
Yeah, so it's a treatment strategy that some psychologists have been trained in. So it's not something that every psychologist will know. They will have to go and do further training with this. But essentially, it's a style of hypnotherapy that acts on the gut. And it is just as effective as the low FODMAP diet at reducing something like Endo Belly.
Wow.
Really, really exciting. So IBS. One of the key differences between nutrition strategies for the gut and using the brain, or going from that top down, from the mind down to the gut strategy, is that the mind down to the gut takes a little bit longer. So on average, like what I would see with my clients is that it's generally about into the third week of doing gut-directed hypnotherapy with a trained psychologist, that they start noticing changes in the way they feel and the way they perceive situations. So one of my clients, I'll never forget what she said to me. She said that normally she had, I think, tradespeople working nearby, and they were like banging and clanking around, and that would just normally irritate her so much, like just this frustrating noise throughout the day. And on this particular day that they were doing work, and she was into her third week of doing her gut hypnotherapy, and she just could hear this like inner voice say, it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. It doesn't affect me. It's not going to be forever. They're doing their job. I'm doing my thing, like this kind of just sense of calm came over her. And I found it was from that moment that I just went, this is amazing. Like, I want all my clients to do this.
Yeah.
Yeah. And
That's
so
incredible.
it's really, really cool stuff. And so the gut directed hypnotherapy, or any kind of like psychological strategies, right? They can take a little bit more time. So 3 weeks minimum, and you want to be doing them consistently every day. You might even do it for as long as you want to, because there's no harm in continuing to practice mindset and mental health. Things though, with nutrition, say using things like Fodmap approaches or other dietary strategies around caffeine and meal portions and sizes, hydration, movement, these things have a much quicker time frame in that they relieve symptoms. So I actually like to use a dual approach. So using nutrition strategies to quickly relieve symptoms, to give you back energy, to make you feel better, and then bring in the deeper stuff, bring in things like gut directed hypnotherapy, as well as like, you know, the anti-inflammatory stuff, because together that's what's going to get someone feeling really amazing quickly, but also in the long term, you know?
Yeah,
Yeah.
100%.
Yeah.
I think that's nuts. I haven't heard about that hypnotherapy. I'm going to have to research it a ton because it kind of sounds like mind-body syndrome a little bit. Have you ever heard about that? Right? And like the
Yes.
work that you can do where you can manage a lot of your pain that you have with controlling your mind, basically. I don't know.
Yeah.
I just made it sound super woo-woo. That's not what it is, but
No, look, there's a lot of truth in this, and I'm not a
yeah.
psychologist, so I don't fully understand everything. But you know, our outlook on life can completely change your trajectory in life, essentially. And if you believe something, if you can visualize it, and essentially, I guess that woo-woo term is like manifest it. You know, you can achieve a lot with your mind, and a lot of, you know, I guess our pain is something that we process in our brain. Our body is detecting pain somewhere in the body, and it's going up to the brain, and the brain is going, oh, I don't like that. And that's when you feel pain. And so it makes sense that a lot of our pain management can come back to the brain, and actually being able to learn strategies around managing it with the mind.
Yeah.
So yeah, I'm a total believer in that.
I am too. And it's incredible that we're in a time that all of this is happening, right? So
Yeah.
like you were saying, in our lifetime, we'll actually be able to see like proper diagnoses and like maybe management, like better management tools and things like that. But in the meantime, what you do is amazing, and the results that you see with your clients is amazing, and you are amazing.
Oh, thank you.
And I'm so grateful that you're here and that you do what you do.
Thank you, thank you. Yeah, I'm a big believer in not just looking just onto the surface of an issue. Something like Endo Belly could be so easily just managed by looking at those symptom management strategies, like just FODMAP and just you know, doing more exercise and breathing and doing all of that. But actually, like, it kind of involves like looking into trying to understand what is the root cause of endo belly. Like, is it inflammation that's driving it? Is it food intolerances? Is it in bacterial imbalances in your gut? Going that little bit deeper into those things is what's going to give you that longer term change and improvement, rather than sort of just constantly yo-yoing between like different dietary strategies. And oh yeah, I think stress in particular is probably one of the biggest ones. And I think that more dietitians and psychologists need to work together and actually like bring them together.
Yeah, I agree. And I also think like that's why it's so important to work with actually a registered dietitian like yourself, you know, as with like when you have endometriosis, instead of just Googling and finding the endo diet, or finding that you have to go like full vegan or whatever it is that you see online and blindly following that diet when it might not actually work for you, right?
Yeah, it might not work. And also you don't know what timeline to give it a go for as well. Like, you know, a lot of the time we don't know, how long do I have to do a certain dietary strategy to see an improvement? Like, what is my expectation here? And sometimes what you might have started 2 years ago actually was getting you on the right track, but you didn't know it was something you needed to do for 4 weeks, or it was something that, you know, isn't an overnight thing. Or maybe it is only 3 days. Like something like FODMAP, you can see changes in symptoms in only 3 days. And that's, you know, I think part of it is actually that guidance around like, what's my timeline, you know, and therefore you know what time you need to invest in it and what you need to get, you know, how do you shop for it? How do you prepare? How does this fit into your life? You know, you've got other people to feed in your house, I'm sure. And
Yeah.
they need to be considered.
Yeah, and like trying to figure out that balance can be very difficult. So yeah.
Exactly. Yeah.
One thing that I wanted to ask you about, because I know that you have like an Endo Belly program, I would love for you to share a little bit about that, because for anybody listening right now, I'm sure so many people that have endometriosis are like, oh my God, this is me. How do I
Mm.
help? Like, how do I work with her?
Yes,
Yeah,
yes.
it's free to share.
So what I was working with my one-on-one clients using various like frameworks. I was looking at when is the optimal time to be using a Fodmap diet, who is a Fodmap diet most appropriate for and who it's not appropriate for, what other layers to this do we need to add so that we get that longevity out of their symptoms being improved, and essentially hopefully slowing down the endo growth and actually contributing to reducing the disease's progression. So there's kind of like really big picture concept things. And I ended up kind of like formulating something that was working consistently. Like every client that I had, it was just working and working and working. I was like, this is really effective. But I got to that point where my books were just so full. Like I didn't have space to start seeing more people, and I have to close them down. Then I'd reopen them and then close them down again. I was like, this is just mad. I can't keep doing this. And I feel terrible like turning people away as well. So what I have been really busy working on is actually putting this framework of mine into something that is a little bit more available to everybody. So turning certain components of it into like online lessons and tutorials, videos, and I'm kind of like building this into a course portal, and it's got downloadable resources, recipes, checklists, guides, like all of the actual like the bits that you need to action. So you learn something in a video lesson, and now you need to action it. And so I've actually created what I call like a hybrid system, where I have a component that is, you can learn in your own time. And then there's that coaching component, because we all know that you're going to stumble at some point. Or what about you? Because you're unique. What about you're on these medications and you take these supplements and your family situation is like this. So, I like to still have these personal elements where there is still this coaching experience where, you're being kept accountable, you're feeling supported. And I've never had before a community component with my work that I do with people. I've never had them like, I was like, I want to bring everyone together and be, you're all on this journey together. You're all doing the same thing. So get chatting, because sometimes you can get the best golden nugget advice and information from someone else who's doing it alongside you. And so I kind of have now built in this Facebook community component with the program. So where I'm at now with it is that I have my first group of people who are moving through this program with me. And I'm actually going to be launching it for the second time in May. And I it's terrible that this is going to take so long, but it's because I'm getting married.
Congrats.
Which is wonderful. Damn it, I'm getting married. My wedding is next month, and I just thought, I don't want to relaunch this again right before I'm about to get married. I do want to enjoy that. It's only once, hopefully only once. Everyone only wants to get married once. That's what I plan on. And so after my wedding, I'm actually going to launch it again. And so this will be the next opportunity for anyone who would like to get on board. In the meantime, though, what I am doing is I have my Endo Belly 5-day challenge. That is totally free. So you can actually download that for free. And it's like a little taster of this program. So it's got components of bits and pieces from it. And so if you feel relief on this 5-day challenge that I've got, this free download, then that's a really good sign that you're going to be a perfect fit for this program. Because if you're already feeling relief on just the 5 days, like there is so much more we're going to be doing, and the relief's just going to get bigger and bigger. And so with downloading that, it will put you on a wait list as well. If you'd like, we'll usually send an email back and say, would you like to be on the wait list? Because I'm going to do early bird discounts and bonuses and things just to say thanks for everyone who's been on this wait list up until May.
Amazing. Yeah. And I'll link all of that below for anybody watching or listening that is like, I need this. How do I sign up? So I'll link it all below so you can get the free 5-day challenge, get on the wait list for this program, because it's going to be amazing.
Yes. Yeah. I'm super excited. Very, very excited.
Yeah. Thank you so much for everything that you do and for coming on today. Is there any last things that you wanted to share?
Oh gosh, that's a really good question. I mean, I think that if I was to share anything, I was definitely going to talk about my Endo Belly program. You've already asked me about that. Oh, nothing's coming to my mind right now.
That's okay. I put you on the spot. No worries.
I know. Whenever someone asks me, I'm like, oh, make sure I talk about the program.
No, I got you. Well,
Thank you so
wonderful.
much for having me here.
You are so welcome, and I'm so happy that you're here, and thank you for everything that you do. I know everybody's going to get a lot out of this episode. There were so many like little good nuggets of info in there, so thank you again.
Yeah, not a problem. Thank you for having me.
Yeah, of course. Bye.
I hope you loved this episode as much as I did. And if you're new to this, welcome to the Endometriosis Empowerment Series for Endo Awareness Month 2021. All month, I'm going to be posting 2 trainings per week throughout the month of March in my podcast, on my YouTube, and in my Facebook group. If you're not in the Facebook group, you can click the button below this podcast episode to join and get connected with other people in the group that are also doing the series and who are on a similar healing journey as you. So throughout the month, I'm going to be posting trainings from top experts in areas such as excision surgery, hormones, fertility, energy healing, and so many more to help you feel more empowered in your healing journey with endometriosis. Thank you so much for tuning in, and I'll catch you on the next episode. Bye, babe.